So you decide to go on a meat-based diet. You're doing it to heal, right? To finally get a handle on all those nagging health issues. But then something strange happens. Instead of feeling better, your hormones seem to go completely haywire. It's a super frustrating and honestly a really confusing place to be. And it's a story we are hearing so much more often. So what is really going on here? And that's the big question, isn't it? You've cut out all the inflammatory stuff, you're focusing on this nutrient-dense meat, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but things are actually getting worse, not better? What gives? Is the diet itself the problem? Or is there something much, much deeper at play? Now, the first piece of advice you'll probably hear is, oh, you just need to add back some carbs for your hormones. But our source for this explainer, Dr. Elizabeth Bright, she argues that this advice completely misses the point. The real key, she says, lies in a totally different macronutrient, one that literally builds the foundation of your entire hormonal system. Okay, first things first, let's just validate what so many people are going through by looking at the most common hormonal distress signals. See if any of these ring a bell for you. Yep, these are the classics that Dr. Bright sees all the time in her practice. Hair loss, losing your period completely, waking up wired at 3 a.m., feeling just bone tired no matter what you do, and that stubborn weight that just won't budge. Look, these aren't just little inconveniences. They're your body's alarm bells screaming that something is fundamentally out of whack.
So, now that we've seen the symptoms, let's get to the root cause. And I'll tell you right now, the answer probably isn't what you think it is.
Okay, this right here really reframes the whole conversation. The popular idea is to blame the lack of carbs, but Dr. Bright argues that's a total red herring. The real culprits, she says, are chronic stress, often from years and years of dieting and undereating, and, this is the kicker, not eating nearly enough dietary fat to fight back against that stress. To really get why fat is so important here, we have to talk about cortisol. You can think of cortisol as your body's internal SWAT team. When your body senses a threat, it doesn't care if it's running from a lion or just the chronic low-grade stress of undereating for a decade. It pumps out cortisol. It is a survival mechanism, and your body will always prioritize survival over everything else, including making babies.
And this is where it all clicks. All of your major steroid hormones, we're talking cortisol, progesterone, estrogen, they're all made from the exact same raw material, cholesterol. And where you get cholesterol? From dietary fat. So when you are under chronic stress, your body is in a state of emergency, and it's making cortisol like crazy. It diverts all those precious cholesterol building blocks to the cortisol factory, and in the process, it basically steals them from the production lines for your sex hormones. It's not really a hormone problem, it's a resource problem, driven entirely by stress.
So if the problem is this resource shortage caused by stress, then the solution is actually pretty logical. You have to flood the system with the right resources. Let's take a look at how you do that. I absolutely love this quote from Dr. Bright because it completely shifts your mindset. Fat isn't just about calories here, it's a therapeutic tool. You're not just eating for energy. You are actively calming down a system that's been in panic mode for years. You are literally putting out the inflammatory fires that have been raging inside you. And she's not vague about it either. She has a very specific prescription. We're talking about a diet where 70 to 80% of your daily calories come from fat. Now, this isn't just your standard keto diet. This is a therapeutic, high-fat protocol designed to send a powerful signal of safety and abundance to your body. So why on earth does this work so well? Well, it's a two-pronged attack. First, you're providing such an overwhelming abundance of the raw material, that cholesterol from fat, that your body no longer has to choose between making stress hormones and sex hormones. It can finally do both. And second, you're sending a powerful signal to your nervous system that the famine is over. You're telling it that you are safe, which allows those overworked adrenal glands to finally stand down and get some rest. All right, now the most common thing I hear at this point is, wait a second, how am I possibly supposed to eat that much fat without feeling sick? And you know what? That is a totally valid concern. So let's walk through the strategy. Look, if you've spent years, maybe even decades on a low-fat diet, your digestive system, especially your gallbladder, is probably really out of shape. Suddenly asking it to process a diet that's 80% fat is like asking a couch potato to go run a marathon tomorrow. It's just not ready. It needs to be trained. So, here's the game plan straight from the source material. First, break it down. Instead of trying to wolf down 1 or 2 huge, fatty meals, try having 4 or 5 smaller ones throughout the day. This is so much easier on your digestion. Second, You have to be patient with your gallbladder. It's basically a muscle, and if you haven't been using it, it's gotten weak. It needs time to get stronger again. And finally, think about getting some temporary backup. A supplement like ox bile can act like a little helper, emulsifying fats while your own system gets back up to speed.
Now, this whole approach doesn't just apply to things like a missing period. Dr. Bright takes this same logic and uses it to reframe one of the most misunderstood and feared transitions in a woman's life: menopause. This is so fascinating. The conventional medical model often treats menopause like it's a disease, right? A deficiency that needs to be fixed with drugs. But the evolutionary view is completely different. It sees menopause as this brilliant adaptation, the grandmother hypothesis, where older women, once they were freed from childbearing, became absolutely crucial for the survival of their families by providing wisdom, finding food, and caring for grandkids. It was never meant to be a time of suffering.
So what about all those miserable symptoms, like hot flashes? Dr. Bright argues they are not an inevitable part of getting older. A hot flash is essentially a physical stress response. It's your body reacting to sky-high cortisol levels that have built up over a lifetime of stress and undernourishment. The problem isn't your age, it's the accumulated exhaustion of your adrenal glands.
And that brings us to hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Dr. Bright does not mince words here. She calls it a hack. Why? Because it's just an external override that does absolutely nothing to fix the underlying resource problem. You're just masking the symptoms without healing the root cause, which is the body's inability to make its own hormones because of all that chronic stress and the lack of raw materials. So we end on this one question, a question that challenges the entire paradigm we've been sold for our whole lives. For decades, fat has been the enemy. But what if, for women's hormonal health, it's actually the hero? What if the key to calming the stress, building the hormones, and truly deeply healing isn't about fearing fat, but about finally embracing it as the medicine it was always meant to be?